relevant in contemporary world. So, introduction. The theatre of the absurd is a post-Second World War name for particular plays of absurdist fiction. So the first thing that comes to our mind when we speak about the theatre of the absurd is that it is a trend, or it is a kind of drama or a movement which started after the Second World War, and it the theme or the subject matter is absurdist fiction. I will elaborate on absurdist fiction. These were written primarily by European, particularly French playwrights in 1950s. The main exponents of the theatre of the absurd were Eugene Ionesco, Samuel Beckett, Jean Genet, and Arthur Adamov. So this was, this kind of drama. It was a new and experimental kind of drama, and it started for the first time started from France, from Paris, and Eugene Ionesco was the first dramatist, whose play The Bald Soprano was, or The Bald Prima Donna was first staged in 1950. So, about this group of dramatists, their work focuses on the idea of existentialism and portrays meaninglessness and purposelessness of human existence. So, for this subject matter, it was a new and existential drama, new kind of a drama, and for its subject matter, they depended upon the philosophy of existentialism, which portrays the meaninglessness or absurdness or the purposelessness of human existence. These dramatists did not form a part of any self-proclaimed or self-conscious school or movement. On the contrary, each of these writers was an individual who regarded himself as a lone outsider, cut off and isolated in his private world, and expressed his own personal vision of the world. So, when we say that this was a movement, it would be not very right to say that because these dramatists, no, this term, the theatre of the absurd, come much later. When these dramatists started writing, they did not, make any group. They did not belong to any group or school of thought. They were not self-proclaimed. They did not proclaim that this is the kind of drama that they are going to write, and this is the school of thought to which they belong. And they were not even self-conscious that whether they were belonging or they were writing drama, which was a trend in those days. Because these writers, when they started writing, they were writing on an individual basis. They were like an individual who were like cut off from the rest of the world, and through their plays, it was their observation. Their plays were in their personal observation, their personal vision of the outside world. Each had his own personal approach to both subject matter and form. All of them were not similar in the treatment of their subject matter. They had very personal approach, although collectively they wrote about, they wrote about a territory which was shared by all, but the subject treatment was very personal, very individual. If they had something in common, it was because their work sensitively mirrors and reflects the preoccupations and anxieties, the emotions and thinking of many of their contemporaries. So they started on their own as an individual. The sources from which they drew were different, their roots were different, their subject matter and form. It was not copied or it was not derived from some other, contemporary dramatist. But if we find that they have something in common, if they share something, whether it is in terms of treatment of subject or it is in terms of the theme of the drama, it was because all of them, in their own individual capacity, they mirrored or reflected the preoccupations and anxieties of the age. Okay, in those times, how the people or the thinking elite of that period were thinking, how they were behaving to the outside world, what were their preoccupations, what were their anxieties. These writers also shared the same, and they portrayed them in their works. And hence, all these dramatists, the ones that I have mentioned, these were the main exponents of this kind of theater, but there were many other writers also. Most of the writers are from, some of them are from Britain, and most of it was a continental trend, movement, you can say. So most of the writers are from different languages, from Germany, from Russian, many writers were from French, from France. So I have not included all those names here. So, about the term absurd, what is the meaning of absurd and how it originated? How these, like I said in the previous slide, that these writers, they did not coin this term, the theater of absurd. They did not have when they started writing, they did not consciously belong to a group. They did not have a manifesto, and they did not have a clearly laid out rules that they are going to write about this, write like this. So how this term was given to their kind of writing? The term the theatre of absurd was first coined by critic Martin Islin in his 1960 essay, The Theatre of the Absurd. So this term, this name, the theatre of the absurd, was not given by these dramatists themselves, but it was in fact given by a critic, Martin Islin, uh, much later, after this drama was written in the 50s, and this term was coined in 1960 in his essay, The Theatre of the Absurd. So this was a general umbrella term under which many writers came. They were in some aspects they were similar to each other. In some aspects they were different from each other. It is an umbrella term which was given. He grouped the new experimental plays around the theme of absurd as used by Albert Camus in his 1942 essay The Myth of Sisyphus. Now, how Martin Esselin was able to pick and choose writers in this theater of the absurd, he chose them on the basis of their subject matter, on the basis of the theme that they were employing in their drama. These writers were, I'm sorry, Martin Esselin. He used the term when he looked at the subject matter. Many of these dramatists were writing on the theme of absurd, which was first used by Albert Camus. He is an existential philosopher, and he wrote an essay in 1942. The name of the essay was The Myth of Sisyphus. And in this essay, he elaborates upon the meaning of absurd. So, what is the meaning of absurd? Absurd, generally, when we in general terms, absurd means ridiculous. But here, absurd does not mean ridiculous. What does it mean? Absurd in the context of absurdism can mean without purpose, illogical, out of harmony, useless, devoid of reason, meaningless, hopeless, chaotic, lacking order, and uncertain. So, something which does not have a purpose, which is irrational, which is illogical, which baffles your mind, which evades your comprehensibility, which something which you fail to understand and decipher with your mind, with your intellect, and something which does not have a reason, which is meaningless, chaotic. That thing is called, that is the meaning of absurd. The meaning of absurd was further elaborated upon by Ionesco. He wrote an essay on Kafka, and he defined absurd as absurd is that which is devoid of purpose. something which is purposeless, which is meaningless, which is cut off from his roots. So this is in terms of man. Man, when he is cut off from his religious, metaphysical, and transcendental roots, man is lost. All his action becomes senseless, absurd, and useless. So when man, so religion is something, religion is not just, we cannot say religion is something that we believe in. It's just not just our faith, but religion is something which gives meaning to our existence, which gives it significance, which sanctifies it. So if we are not religious, or if we lose faith in religion, then the meaning that we derive of our existence, which comes from our, from our religious faith, that meaning is lost. And when the meaning of our life is lost, man is lost, and whatever he does in his existence, whatever actions he does, all those actions become senseless, absurd, and useless. Now, this is this was about the meaning of absurd. Why the theater of the absurd is called absurd? Why these dramatists were labeled as the dramatists of the absurd? And what does it really mean? Now, we know that absurd means illogical, meaninglessness, purposelessness of life. Now, how these feelings came into being, why man or people or the dramatists, they started feeling this way, why they felt disillusioned, why there was a sense of despair in society. There were several reasons for behaving, or for feeling this way, for the feelings, and that I have covered in this section background. This attitude of these playwrights is grounded on the sense that the certitudes and basic assumptions of the former ages have crumbled. Certitudes means certainties, and assumptions means those pillars, those bases on which we lay our existence, which are the basis of or the pillars of our existence. The pillars of society, they could be religious faith, that could be politics, that could be anything. So all those things which give meaning to our life, all those things, they have these playwrights or these philosophers, they questioned these assumptions, they questioned these certainties, which were the basis of life in former ages, and they found that these assumptions have crumbled, they have shattered, they are no more, relevant. These assumptions were tested and were found lacking, and hence have been discredited as cheap and somewhat childish illusion. So these pillars on which our life or our existence was based, these pillars were tested, these theories were tested, and they were found lacking. They were found that they are no more relevant. They do not, they are not able to put meaning back into life. And these theories will, or these all, assumptions or certainties, they were rejected, and they were they were called illusionary, somewhat childish illusion. Means no theory, no certainty, be it religion, be it scientific advancement, be it progress, be it civilization or politics. These all were not able to give meaning to man's existence. They could not put it right, and hence they were said to be an illusion. They were said to be illusionary. The decline of religious faith had started with enlightenment in the late 19th century, when Nietzsche had declared God is dead. Okay, uh, in the late 19th century, decline of religious faith was not something which happened recently. hmm, during the 1950s. But it was something which had started with the Age of Enlightenment in the late 19th century, when Nietzsche is another philosopher who declared that God does not exist, God is nowhere, he is dead. And this loss of faith was masked until the Second World War by substitute religions like faith in progress, feeling of nationalism. But when people lost faith in religion, since the late 19th century, there were other, you can say faiths, there were some other things which substituted for it. And this was masked. Okay, loss of faith did not matter so much, because if man did not believe in religion, he believed in other institutions of the society, like faith in progress, feeling of nationalism. Faith in progress means the technological advancements in 20th century. The man was standing, you can say, at the epitome of civilization. Man had come a long way from the, when we are talking in terms of European history. So man had, or European civilization had come a long way from the dark ages, and the civilization can be said to be at its peak, in terms of scientific progress, in terms of technological advancement, in terms of progress, in terms of, you know, learning, knowledge, everything. Man was the political setup, the social setup, everything was at its peak. But these things started, crumbling after the First World War a little bit, because man lost faith in science or in progress. And Second thing was second thing which substituted for religious faith was the feeling of nationalism. If man or people did not believe in religion, they believed in nation, they believed in nationalism and patriotism. These were still some things which rendered some meaning to the life, to the man's existence. But all of this was shattered by the Second World War. People lost faith in social progress in the wake of the First World War. So that I already covered. I said that after the First World War, people started questioning whether this progress is for real, because the First World War, after the First World War, there was so much of destruction of life, that people started questioning these values. There was disillusionment with hopes of radical social revolution as predicted by Marx after Stalin had turned Soviet Union into a totalitarian tyranny. Now, another aspect was of social importance was the radical social revolution, the Russian Revolution, which was grounded, which was based on the theory of Marx, and which paved a way for a kind of society uh, which in which people believed they had strong faith in, because it was founded on the principle of equality. Mm, And but uh, after the social revolutions in Soviet Union, Stalin came to power, and once he came to power, he he ran the country with a high-handed authority, and people, the kind of politics or the kind of government was there in Soviet Union. People started losing faith in this as well, in Marxism or in socialism as well. In addition to that, before the Second World War, during the Hitler's rule, the world witnessed relapse into barbarism, mass murder, genocide during Hitler's rule in Germany. So, on the one hand, man was thinking that he is civilized and the civilization is at its peak. On the other side, we see such instances like Holocaust in Germany, where on the basis of ethnicity, on the basis of religion, there was so much of barbarism and mass murder. So this also uh, led to the disillusion among society. In addition to this, there was spiritual emptiness after World War II in the affluent societies of US and Western Europe. So US did not participate in the Second World War, and after Second World War, there was a rise in the economy of some countries of Western Europe and US, and all these affluent, all these rich countries, although they were rich, they were developed, but there was a sort of spiritual emptiness, spiritual despair. So, in all, the world in mid 20th century lost its meaning. There was nothing on which man could pin his hopes on, and this kind of world, it ceased to make sense, and suddenly man was faced with a universe that was frightening and illogical. So till now, man had so many, aspects, so many things which gave meaning to his existence, which made or which sanctified or gave significance to his existence. But he tried and tested all these areas or these pillars, and he found that all of these have not contributed to give meaning to his existence. And man was in despair because he found that he was faced with a universe in which was frightening, which was illogical, and he found that he was a stranger in such a kind of world. Influence of existentialism. Till now, I told that this kind of philosophy was, this kind of drama was heavily influenced by existentialism, or it was grounded on the existentialist philosophy. The theater of the absurd draws from the existential philosophy of Albert Camus and Sartre. There were many existential philosophers, starting from Kierkegaard, but the theories or the philosophy of Camus and Sartre is more relevant to the theater of the absurd, so I'm speaking about that. According to this, the universe and an individual's life in it are too chaotic and too irrational to be reduced to a comprehensive system. So, according to this, the universe and an individual's life in it are too chaotic and too irrational to be reduced to a comprehensive system. So Camus and Sartre, they believed, or they said in their works, that this universe and an individual and the man's life in it are chaotic. They don't have any purpose, any sense, and they cannot be understood. They cannot be comprehended. It is impossible. They are so chaotic that it is just not possible to understand them. To understand them in rational terms. The absurd arises from the tension between man's keenness to understand the universe and the refusal of the universe to be understood. And the feeling of absurd, it arises from a tension. Man, on the one hand, he tries to understand universe, he wants to understand his role in the universe, and he wants to make a sense of his life in this universe. But on the other hand, the universe simply refuses to be understood. It is so irrational and chaotic that you cannot understand your life outside itself. You cannot understand your lives in relation to the outside, in relation to the universe. So this results in attention, and the result is despair. Despair is the natural result of the absurd, because man is not able to understand the universe in which is by which he is surrounded, and this results in a feeling of despair, hopelessness. However gloomy absurdism may be, yet man must face existence, however bleak and meaningless, without any reassurance from religion or any other philosophy. So, at one time in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, I'll speak about it later. Camus had even said that faced with so much of meaningless and chaos, why should man not contemplate suicide? Why he should not, attempt suicide? Because there was no meaning to his existence. But uh, absurdism may be gloomy, but uh, one condition is that man is destined. It is the fate of man to face his existence. The existence may be bleak, it may be gloomy, it may be meaningless, it may not have any hope or optimism, it may not have any reassurance from religious faith, but you have, as a man, you have to face your existence. This is the theory of the absurd. It opposes the traditional religious perspective that life's purpose is about fulfillment of God's commandments. So every religion, when I said that religion gives meaning to man's life, because traditional religion says it is based on the principle that our life, a man's life, is is about fulfilling God's commandments. Whatever the commandments are of God are, we have to fulfill them, we have to carry them out in our life. And this is the purpose of our existence. But now in this world, when people and these dramatists, they lost faith in religion, they did not believe in religion, the reassurance or the meaning which religion gives to life, that reassurance was also gone. A world that can be explained by reasoning, however faulty, is a familiar one. But in a universe which is certainly deprived of meaning, man feels a stranger. So, a world which is rational, which which can be explained by reasoning, it may be right, it may be wrong, it may not be perfect, it may have many drawbacks, but if it can be explained in some by some kind of reasoning, then it is a familiar world. You can relate to it, you can understand it. But if the universe is unreasonable, which is certainly but in a universe which is certainly deprived of meaning, man feels a stranger. But in a universe which does not have any meaning at all, you cannot relate to that universe and you feel like an alien. This divorce between man and his life truly constitutes the feeling of absence. So, divorce, the difference between man and his existence, his universe, this is the foundation of the feeling of absurd. Now, till now we have made an attempt to understand the meaning of absurd. So we know now how in terms of subject matter, how in terms of themes, this drama was different. What were the different themes that this drama worked on, but how it was different from traditional play. Till now, the kind of drama that was written or that was staged in theaters all over the world, I have called it traditional play, the conventional play, uh, and how this new experimental theater differed from that. The drama of the absurd flouted all standards by which drama had been judged for centuries. So there are certain rules of drama, when we read Aristotle right from the Greek tragedy till today, there are certain aspects, certain rules of the drama according to which it is written and it is judged. So, but this kind of a drama, it flouted all those standards. If this drama did not conform to any of the standards which were, laid down by the traditional drama. A conventional, well-made play has a cleverly constructed. How it is different? A conventional play or a traditional play or a well-made play, a good drama, it has a cleverly constructed story. Okay, it has a story to tell. It may be a story, it may be an idea, like Shaw wrote the drama of ideas. So It may be a drama, idea, but it had a story, it had a plot. But absurd plays have no story or plot. The absurd plays, they do not have any story, they do not have an idea to express, and they do not have a proper plot, a plot on which the drama is based. Their plot is different. The theatre of the absurd mirrors the chaos and incomprehensibility of existence. Hence, it dismisses plot because it is based on causality. Plot का main चीज क्या है? How plot is, what is the significance of plot? Because it is based on a cause and effect relationship. There is a, whatever happens in a drama, it is based, there is a reason for it, there is a cause for it, and whatever happens, it has a result also. But theater of the absurd, it reflects or it mirrors the chaos and meaninglessness of existence, incomprehensibility of existence. And hence, for writing this subject matter, for writing this kind of a drama, the dramatist dismiss the plot, because when in your existence, in the, for the existence of mankind, there is no cause and effect relationship. No, there is no cause and effect equation. They felt in the drama also there should not be any plot which is based on the equation of cause and effect. Okay, because it mirrors chaos. There should be chaos in the form of the drama also. A good play is judged by subtlety of characterization and motivation. But these plays are without recognizable characters, and the characters are almost mechanized puppets. So, a good play, a well written play, conventional play, it has a subtlety, it is judged by subtlety of characterization. It has well developed, well sketched characters, and but these plays, the theater of the, or the drama of the absurd, they do not, they are without recognizable characters. The characters are not well sketched, they are not individuals, they do not have well sketched personalities, they are not recognizable. They can be exchanged. Two characters, they can be more or less, they can be exchanged for one another, so they are not recognizable, and the characters are almost mechanized puppets. They do not have a personality or an individuality of their own, they seem like puppets. So in terms of characterization also, this drama was very different from the traditional drama. A well-written play has fully explained theme, which is neatly exposed and solved. These plays neither have a beginning or end. So, in a traditional drama, there is a fully explained theme. There is a proper beginning, middle, and end. There is a beginning. We are introduced to the drama. Then there is climax, and then there is a resolution of the conflict at the end. But these dramas, the dramas of the absurd, they do not have a proper beginning or end. Sometimes they start at an arbitrary point and seem to end arbitrarily. Means there is there is no reason how, there is no set form how they will start. They start at a point, arbitrary point, and they end without any solution, without offering any solution, quite arbitrarily. If a good play holds the mirror up to nature and portrays the manners and mannerisms of the age in finely observed sketches, these plays often seem to be reflections of dreams and nightmares. So, a good play or a traditional play, it portrays the manners and mannerisms of the age in which it is written. And the characters are finely observed characters, but this drama of the absurd, these plays often seem to be reflection of, they do not portray reality, they are, because they are not realistic dramas, or naturalistic dramas, they do not portray the manners or mannerisms of the society. Sometimes it appears as if they are, these dramas, or everything that is happening in the plot of these dramas, it is a reflection of a nightmare. Everything is happening in a dream. They have a dream-like reality, not the real reality. Okay? A good play entertains by witty and logically built up dialogue. A good play entertains. It has the dialogue is witty, it has wit, it has repartee, it has meaning. But these plays, in these plays, the dialogue also seems to have degenerated into meaningless babble. So, in a world which is chaotic, the language plays an important role because it is a language which gives meaning, which expresses the meaning or the meaninglessness of life. So in a chaotic world, if you are portraying that chaos of the world in your plays, then the language also cannot function in its traditional manner. The language also, these which is used in these plays, it has degenerated into meaningless babble, just speaking something without any meaning. These plays pursue an end quite different from those of the conventional play, hence they were applying a different convention of drama. So why these plays, they have a different, why they are so different from a traditional play? Because in the end of a traditional play, the the purpose of a traditional play is different, and the purpose of these plays is completely different from that, and hence the rules or the form that they were applying in their drama was also different from the conventional or the traditional play. Existential drama versus the theater of the absurd. Now, previously I said that the theater of the absurd, for its theory, for its content, for its theme, it depends on, or it grounds itself in the existential, philosophy. So, uh, existential drama was also written. Albert Camus and Sartre, they were also novelists and dramatists. So the kind of drama they wrote is called existential drama. So if theater of absurd is also is dependent, or it's grounded in the philosophy of existentialism, how is it different from existential drama? The theater of the absurd deals with the absurdity of human existence, a similar sense of senselessness of life, the inevitable devaluation of ideals and purpose is also the theme of existential drama of Sartre and Camus. So, as far as the theme is concerned, as far as the subject matter is concerned, both the dramas, they portray, or they depict the same thing. Okay, the theater of the absurd and the existential drama, they deal with the absurdity of human existence, they deal with the purposelessness and meaninglessness of human life. Okay, so far so good. But they differ in one important respect. The existential dramatists present their sense of irrationality of human existence in the form of a very lucid and logically constructed reasoning. Okay, so when the existential dramatists, that is Camus and Sartre, when they wrote dramas, they also portrayed the absurdity of human existence in their works, but they did in the form of very lucid and logically constructed reasoning. Everything, whatever they said in their drama, whatever ideas they expressed in their dramas, those ideas were very neatly laid out, they were logically and rationally explained, they were reasoned out. Whereas the theater of the absurd expresses the same by abandoning all rational devices. But the theater of the absurd goes one step further than this, and it expresses, or it portrays the absurdity of human existence. But for portraying this meaningless or this absurdity, it it does not employ the rational or the traditional devices. The language they use is not logical. It is irrational. Okay, they abandoned that rational language. Sartre and Camus present the new content in old form. So Sartre and Camus were speaking about new content, they were speaking about new philosophical ideas, they were speaking about existentialism in a new form. But this new content was laid out before the audiences or before the public in an old form. The treatment of the subject matter was traditional, while the theater of the absurd devises new conventions of form for the new content. So, and how the theater of the absurd differs? Hmm? The theater of the absurd was also speaking about new content, about new philosophy, but in order to speak about that new content, they devised new conventions of their own, and they abandoned the old form, or the old way of expressing the old conventions of form. When Camus argued that the world is devoid, excuse me, when Camus argued that the world is devoid of sins, he did so in elegant and well-constructed, polished plays. So, Camus also argued in his plays that the world does not have sins. In short, his dramas also dealt with the absurdity of human existence. But when he was writing these dramas, he was writing them in an elegant and well constructed way. His dramas were very, the language was perfect, they were well constructed according to the traditional form of drama. Sartre too presents his ideas in plays based on brilliantly drawn characters who remain wholly consistent. Similarly, Sartre also uses the old form. His characters are also like the traditional characters who are very consistent, but their adherence to old forms suggests that logical discourse can offer valid solutions. So, you can say, when Sartre and Camus, they adhered to the old form of writing drama. They were maybe thinking, or they were trying to suggest that uh, it is true that the human existence is absurd, but through logical discourse, through logical language, through logical reasoning, rationalizing, we can offer some sort of a solution to the present absurdity. But the theater of the absurd, on the other hand, has given up arguing about absurdity of human condition. The theater of the absurd, it goes one step further. It does not argue about, no, Sartre and Camus were philosophers. So they argued, they reasoned out. But in the theater of the absurd, the dramatists do not argue about the absurdity of human condition. They merely present the absurdity through some images. Okay, they present the absurdity, or the meaninglessness of life through some images. And this is the difference between the approach between a philosopher and that of a poet. So Camus and Sartre, when they were writing dramas, they were writing, their approach was that of a philosopher, of logically reasoning out things, whereas the dramatists of the theater of the absurd, they are more like poets. Okay, how a poem is written? In a poem, the poet expresses his ideas through some images. Okay, similarly, the dramatists of the absurd, they were also projecting their ideas, or whatever they had to say, they were saying it through some images. So they were more like poets. It is this striving for an integration between the subject matter and the form in which it is expressed that separates the theater of the absurd from existentialist theater. So this is one important difference between the two, that uh, theater of the absurd, it tried, or it was striving for integrating the subject matter and the form, okay, which is separate, which was not the matter with the existentialist theater. Now, that was about the theme. Now we know that The theater of the absurd, it deals with what it deals with, the meaninglessness of life, or you know the existential angst or despair. But what are the characters, what are the actually characteristics of the theater of the absurd, how the plot is written, how the characterization is done, that I have done in a few points. Plot and structure. uh, anti Anti-realistic against the norms of the conventional theater. The plot is not realistic, and it is against the laws or the norms or the rules of the conventional theater. There is deliberate absence of cause and effect. Between two episodes, two scenes, there is no relationship or no equation of cause and effect. Relation between the scenes are not, the scenes are, disjointed, they are not related to each other, as the scenes are not like one scene would lead to another. Or nor non-linear plot development. In traditional drama, there is a linear plot development, proper beginning, middle, end. But here, the plots were not linear but cyclical. Sometimes the ending, the plot, the dramas ended where at the point where they began. Okay, so the plot was moving in circles, occasionally appearing as though there is no plot at all. So when there was this cyclical kind of a plot, it appeared as if the drama do not have any plot at all. Acting and characterization. Absence of character development. There is no character development. When we meet the characters for the first time, till the end of the drama, they remain same, they remain static, there is no development of their personality. Absurd characters lack the motivation found in characters of realistic drama, highlighting their purposeless. The characters do not have the motivation, and hence they express the purposelessness of life. Time, place, and identity are frequently blurred. Hmm? There is no clear-cut division between time, place, and identity. Hmm? The characters often forget the time and place where there are a lot of people, characters, they undergo an identity crisis. Hmm? They do not know who they are. They need something to prove themselves, like in the play The Caretaker by Harold Pinter. mm, Javies goes by an assumed name, and he keeps on saying throughout the play that his name is Jenkins, and he goes by the name of Jenkins, but his name is Davies, and he does not have anything to prove. He says, the papers which prove my identity, they are kept with some other person since the past 15 years. So since the last 15 years, he is going under an assumed name, and he has a kind of a identity crisis. So the identity of the characters are not sure. They are not able to distinguish clearly between these things. The characters are out of harmony or out of sync with the world in which they live. They do not have a connection or a meaningful relation with the outside world. They exist in their own world. I think I'm running out of time. Movement of the plot is slow, illogical, and repetitive. Action sometimes defies logic or easy industry. Some things happen on the stage which which defy logic. Which have no reason, which are no illogical. It reaches one extreme to other extreme without notice, often somber and serious, then highly comical. Like from one extreme, the action jumps to another extreme. In a perfect somber and serious scene. mm, Suddenly there would be a loud scene, or enraged someone, some character would be enraged, or there would be a highly comical scene. So there is no clear or logical development by By employing a succession of episodes unified merely by theme or mood instead of a cause to effect arrangement, they arrived at a structure paralleling the chaos, which was their usual dramatic subject. So all these things helped in the, depicting the chaos, which was their subject matter. Language was devalued as a communication tool. It was considered unreliable and distrusted. Hmm? The language failed. It was devalued as a communication, means there was a lot of communication gap between the characters. They were not able to communicate. They were not able to express themselves, and the language was not, was not playing, did not play its role of, of communicating with each other. Dialogues were often illogical. There were long pauses. This happens in Pinter. He's known for this kind of writing. There were between the dialogues there were long pauses and frequent use of silence. There was a lot of repetition. Lot of dialogues were repeated by the characters. Then there was the use of silence. Movement of characters contradict their words. See how language fails. The characters say something, but in action they do not follow it. So there is a disconnection between the word, between the language and the word and the object, the language and the behavior. For example, in Waiting for Godot, before the end of the both the acts, the characters say, "Yes, let's go," followed by stage direction. They do not move. So dramatists emphasize a disconnect between word and object. The language does not have its meaning. Stagecraft was very simple. There was minimalistic use of stagecraft. Uh, I will give an example from Waiting for Godot. There are barren set pieces, barely denoting a location. There is just a tree and a country road, and the whole play, it takes place in this setting. I have discussed a few plays. I'll discuss them in short because we are already running late. Uh, I have picked a few, 2, 3 plays uh, because they are very different. They are very unique in the treatment of their subject matter. So, just to elaborate on the theme of absurdness, I have included them. Amity was a play by Eugene Ionesco. It is a play about a middle-aged husband and wife who have not left their flat for years. Hmm? The wife, she works from home, and the husband he is trying to write a play, but he has not progressed much. He never goes beyond writing a 1 page or two. Their situation clearly not taken from real life. Okay, the kind of life they lead in their flat, it is not it is not very realistic. And in their bedroom, there is a corpse lying in the bedroom for many years, and it keeps growing larger and larger. So the play is not, the situation is not from a real life. It is more like a deep dream sequence. It is dream or nightmare, whatever you call it. In their house, they are living for years, and since a long time, for many years, there is a corpse lying in the bedroom, and with the passage of time, day by day, it is growing larger and larger. And no explanation is given for the presence of that corpse. It may be the corpse of the wife's lover, whom the husband discovered and murdered. It may be a burglar, or it may be anyone. No explanation is given. The situation is wildly fantastic, out of ordinary, and seems like a dream or nightmare. Ionesco has, in fact, put a dream situation on stage, and in a dream, the rules of realistic theater do not apply. So, in this play, he has not, he is not portraying a real life situation. He is, in fact, portraying a dream kind of situation, a dream sequence. And in dreams, the rules of realistic theater do not apply, and hence all these conventions of these writers also did not, comply with the rules of the traditional theater. Dreams do not develop logically. Hmm? There is no logical development of dreams. They do not communicate ideas, they communicate images. Same with the treatment of these dramas. Like dreams, dreams do not develop. There is not logical development. Anything can happen in a dream. Similarly, these plays also do not develop logically. They do not communicate ideas. Like dreams, they just communicate images. They just project some images. Here in this drama, the growing corpse can be best understood as a poetic image. Okay, the corpse keeps on growing and it grows so big that it bursts from the bedroom and into the living room. And uh, the husband and the wife, they have to think about leaving. They are forced to think about leaving their flat. So here, this in this play, the growing corpse can be best understood as a poetic image, because it is not something which can happen in a real life, and it is just an uh, it is a static kind of a situation, static image. Dream and poetic imagery are both ambiguous and carry a multitude of meanings. Like a poetic image, this also has a lot of meanings. It can be interpreted in various terms. It may mean power of past mistakes. It may mean waning of love or death of affection. The image can stand for all of these ideas. Next is a play by The Chairs by Eugene Ionesco. Ionesco in this drama probes the theme of social estrangement and the essential impossibility of communication. This is also one of the most common themes of the drama of the absurd: social estrangement, cut off from society, and lack of communication. It is focused on elderly couple aged 94 and 95 respectively, who pass the time telling each other stories. As they talk, audience assembles on stage, but the audience is not the audience of comprising of human beings, but it is composed of chairs. So what does this mean? This is also highly symbolic. This is also an image. It may be an indication of the emptiness of narrative. It may also contain the theme of incommunicability of a lifetime's experience. How you cannot communicate, how you feel, how you have led your life. It is incommunicable to others. Influences of the theatre of the absurd. Theatre of the absurd was an outstanding success in Europe. I think I have missed one slide. Yeah. Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. It was first staged in 1953 in Paris, then in 1955 in London Theatre. And when this play was staged, uh, not only the audience but the critics also, they were baffled. They simply could not make any sense out of it. They were bewildered by this kind of a drama. But when this play was performed again, and it was performed in St. Quentin State Prison in 1957 in California, and it was staged, or it was presented before the convicts of that prison, and here it was a big success. Now, why it was a success? Because it confronted them with the situation. There were two reasons. First, the convicts, they understood the meaning of waiting, because in their life also they were also going through the same phase of life. They were waiting for their term to end, so they knew the significance of waiting. So for since they could relate to the theme of the play, so they liked it and it was a success. And second uh, reason for its success was because, like the audience, the educated audience of Paris, London, and New York, and like the critics, these convicts did not come to see this play with any preconceived ideas. They did not come, looking for a drama with a proper plot, with a kind of, they did not come with the expectation uh, of of uh, of watching a drama which was based on, the traditional conventions or rules. So when they found that this drama does not, has those rules, it did not matter to them. They could understand and grasp it completely. So Waiting for Godot, it does not tell a story. It explores the static situation. There's one line about the drama, which is very significant. Nothing happens, nobody comes, nobody goes. It's awful. So one early critic described it as a play where nothing happens twice. So the same thing which happens in the first act, in the second act also, there is no development. In the first act also, the two characters, they keep on waiting for Godot, and the same thing is repeated in the second act also. And there is an indication that this has been going on in since, a long time. So it seems to confront the reality of a, in its own way, Beckett had tried to confront the reality of a godless universe. It can also be seen as a moral fable on the universal questions that concern us all. Now, this was about the theater of the absurd and how this movement or this kind of theater influenced the world or the playwrights all over the world. The theatre of the absurd was an outstanding success in Europe, but it slowly gained grounds in America. American avant-garde playwrights derived from the European dramatists of the absurd. Edward Albee is the most representational of these all. His works actually attack the foundation of America's spirit and optimism. So it started in absurd drama of absurd. This started in Europe, and slowly it went to to the US. In the 50s, uh, uh, America was still living its, living to work, living with its American dream. And these people or the dramatists there were not moved, or they were not, moved by this kind of drama. But in the 60s, something happened, like there was assassination of President Kennedy. Then there were, ethnic uprisings, black movement and all. And then there was Vietnam War. All these things that happened, it made the Americans, take a pause and reflect back upon themselves and the society they were living in. And this was a point, this was a time when the theater, they felt, a kind of, they were attracted towards the theater of the absurd. And Edward Albee, there are others also, but Edward Albee is the pioneer. Mm, he is the most representational of these all dramatists in America. Two, three dramas are of special significance. In Zoo Story, he writes about human outcast. In American Dream, he scorns the national pride and patriotism, whereas Who is Afraid of Virginia Woolf, he presents characters who are afraid to face reality, their fears and their secrets. So he was, in his own way, he was influenced by the theater of the absurd. Then Tom Stoppard was a British playwright who wrote in the late 60s, and his play Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. It was written in 1966, which is inspired by Shakespeare's Hamlet, but it shows the influence of the theater of the absurd, and it is often related or compared to Waiting for Godot, which may be cited as an inspiration for this play. This play is about two characters here who try to make best, who try their best to make their way in a complex world that, in the process, proves to be just too much for them. They are also trying to make a sense of the world in which they are living. Their confused attempts to understand what is going on and to make sense of their life's purpose mirrors our own struggle to do the same. Now, the tenets of the absurdist theater were not influential in just in the drama, but they also had an immense influence in cinema. I have considered cinema because cinema and theater, though both of them are performative arts and performing arts, and hence uh, absurdist cinema is a classification of works that articulate the themes and ideas of absurdism through the medium of cinema. Hmm? The medium changes, but the themes and ideas, the treatment of the subject matter remains the same. The basic tenets of absurdism in cinema are: absurd cinema abandons a coherent flow or a fixed storyline, not necessarily followed by a happy ending. So, like the plot of an absurd theater, it does not follow a coherent, a logical, plot or a fixed storyline. It focuses self as an autonomous subject. Hmm? It underlines themes such as identity crisis, depicting mankind as a mere shadow of life. It portrays the trauma of the survivors of war. I have given example of one movie, extremely loud and incredible flows. It is based on Jonathan Foy's novel, and it is a finest example of absurdist cinema, in which the character, which who is a 9-year-old boy, he also he loses his father. This novel was written after the 9/11 tragedy in US, and uh, this boy Oscar, he loses his father in this tragedy, and he finds a lock which belongs to his father, and he's trying to look for the key for that lock, because he thinks that he will be able to unravel, he will be able to know a lot of details, about his father, if he's able to find the key of the lock. And he embarks on a journey which is very much like an absurdist journey. He is on a search to find something which gives significance to his life, meaning to his life, and he draws a lot of conclusions. He grows maturer, and he comes to a lot of conclusions about the reality of life after his journey in this novel or in this movie. So, the theater of the absurd emerged during the late 40s and 50s in the aftermath of the Second World War. The exponents of this drama exerted a lot of influence on the younger playwrights. After the 60s, a lot of lesser writers, lesser dramatists, they started. They were influenced by the absurd dramatist, and they wrote a lot of drama on the same thing and the same, treating, uh, following the same tenets of the absurd theater. Had it been just a trend, it would have spent itself and disappeared without trace. But the absurd drama is not just a trend, because if it had been just a trend of the 50s, then it would have died its death, and it would have not have been influential even today. But it genuinely contributed to the development of art. It created new modes of human expression and opened up new areas of experience. So it opened new modes of expression and new areas of experience. The innovations of the dramatists of the absurd have become integrated into the mainstream of dramatic technique and continue to influence the coming generation of dramatists and artists. So many techniques which were used by the dramatists, they are used by other dramatists, even if the dramatist may not belong to the same, school of thought. For example, uh, mm, uh, Osborne, John Osborne was a British dramatist who was into realist theatre. He portrayed the society, but in one of his plays, I'm forgetting the name of the play. In one of his plays, he starts. The drama opens on a dream sequence. Although he was a realist, He had nothing to do with the theater of the absurd, but he employed a technique which belonged to the theater of the absurd in his play. So this shows how the techniques or the modes of the expression of these dramatists had become popular, and how they were, employed by different dramatists at different times. So this is all. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Nazish. Saket, I think that you are getting ready with the questions from the students.
Yes, sir.
Uh, Before you do that, let me make an announcement for the students. Uh, on 7th, we have planned a lecture. It is on the mode of narration, understanding narration from theater, from literature to cinema. And मुझे लगता है कि we are going to enjoy that session. We understand that there is some issue with regard to network. We also know that there is some issue with regard to net packs. But kindly bear with us. All these events are just meant to keep your interest intact in your studies, keep your interest, increase in literature. So these are the intentions. That is what we're doing. Then after 7th, we will take a break of almost a week. So it is a happy news for you. Will not do anything till 14th. But meanwhile, the Hindi department is doing something on Sahitya ke Sarokar. And I think that a few lectures are the two lectures that they have planned are quite good. One is Kavita ke Sarokar, and the other will be Media ke Sarokar. तो वो बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होगा आप लोगों के लिए, और चाहेंगे कि आप में से जो भी लोग इंटरेस्टेड हैं वो हिंदी विभाग के उन दो इवेंट्स को जरूर अटेंड करें. As far as our events are concerned, we are not going to do anything till 7th, sorry, till 14th. 7th को कर रहे हैं. 7th को आपसे मुलाकात होगी इंशाल्लाह, आप सबसे मिलेंगे और आप सब रहिएगा. फिर 14th तक कुछ नहीं करेंगे. 15th, 17th and 20th we will be back with our writer beyond distance interactions, and believe me that you are going to enjoy two very good and very prominent writers. Abhi, I will not announce the name, but yes, I promise you that on 15th you will be going to meet a very great and a very prominent contemporary fiction writer. And on 17th, you are going to meet a very prominent poet who is also carrying a legacy of his or her father with her. So, or फिर 20 को we will also have some writer there. So on 15th, 17th, and 20th, kindly have your net packs intact. As far as Nazish lecture is concerned, Nazish, thank you very much. Saket will certainly take up the questions, but thank you for connecting absurdism with cinema. Thank you for those two famous plays, referring to those two famous plays by UNESCO. And thank you for the conclusion that absurdism is not going to end. We have been time and again told by the detractors of absurdism that it came into being in the 40s and it died in the 1960s. But it is hard to believe. Absurdism is here. Maybe that we may not find absurdist theater, but absurdism will continue. When you are at ease, when you are comfortable, you may not remember absurdism, but whenever mankind will be in crisis, absurdism will come back. This lockdown have made us realize the absurdism in our lives and the life around us. So thank you, Nazish. Thank you very much. One very simplistic question, Nazish. मैं यहीं से शुरू करूं और फिर साकेत will take up the questions. Since you are also interested in Urdu literature, you are quite a good scholar of Urdu literature also. So I just wanted to know, and it is just out of curiosity. I'm not testing you. It is just out of curiosity that do you find any out and out absurdist in Urdu literature? And is there any element of absurdism in any writer which you are taking in your project? This is just out of curiosity, Nazish, nothing else.
No, first of all, I'm not an expert on Urdu literature. I got interested in the topic of my project because I was interested in IPTA and the Rashid Jahan and all, how modernism came into India, into Indian literature, and at that time Hindi and Urdu literatures were the most important, most prominent literatures, and how modernism as a movement, it made its place in Indian literature, in Indian scene. So I have taken my project from that point, and I have tried to incorporate. I have to try to take up the stance of the women novelists and women fiction writers on that from there. So mostly I am considering those writers who are feminist or who are writing about the female women perspective, and uh, who are realists. Absurdist, I have not come across, but I know that you are an authority on Urdu literature. You may be knowing, so I would certainly like to be enlightened if you have something to say.
Many, seriously, I was just wanting to know, and right now I don't have any idea of any out and out absurdist literature. But while at Aligarh, we used to look at Jazbi Sahab and his some of his shares as quite absurdist. But this is not a time to talk about that. We'll talk about that later. So Saket, please.
Can we have some questions, ma'am?
Yeah, sure.
I can see one question from Priya. She's asking, can we say exactly that absurdism talks about the absolute emptiness prevailed during that time?
Yes, it talks about emptiness. It talks about spiritual emptiness. It talks about the meaninglessness that can be a void, but it does not talk. We cannot specify it in an era, as Yahya just said, that whenever there is a crisis, whenever we are confronted with an abnormal situation, we are forced to contemplate. We are forced to to introspect, and at that time absurdism becomes very relevant. It is relevant in all times and all ages and all eras. Okay, so it does not just limit itself to that particular time.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Yashwant is asking, ma'am. While reading any existential drama or poem or prose, can we trace some elements of absurdism in it?
Yeah, they are both in the same things. Okay, all the existential drama is also about absurdism. Absurdism is a it's a trend, or you can say it's a philosophy which pervades the theater of the absurd and the existential dramas as well. Dramas, poems, fiction. So Camus, one very famous novel by Camus is The Outsider. It is also about the existential crisis. Okay, so it is not just limited to theater. It is there. It is a theme which is explored in every, all arts.
Okay. There is one more question. Ekta is asking, if absurdism has no point, then what exactly is the point of absurdism?
No, it has no point. I did not say it does not have point. It is a philosophical situation. It asks questions about man, his existence, his being, how he came into being, and how he is related to the outside universe. So it is a philosophy, it is based on a philosophy which asks questions about the existence of mankind. So it is very important. It is not about nothing.
Anyone else? Students?
No, Saket, I think that you should go ahead with the both of hands.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. On behalf of Department of English, Karim City College, I thank you, ma'am, for taking up time for the lecture here for all of us. I thank all the participants here who have been with us during this lecture, and we will definitely be seeing all of you again in our upcoming lectures. So thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Nazish. शाम में बात करवाऊंगा. She came out of curiosity. She wanted to see you. तो शाम में बात करवाऊंगा इंशाल्लाह
Okay,
फोन
okay.
पे.
Okay, sure. Okay then.
Yes. So
Thank
can
you.
we?
Bye bye.
Yes. Okay.
आज बहुत समय के बाद आखिर तक हुस्ने ज़ैनब दिख रही हैं. और एकता एकता ये लोग सब थर्ड सेमेस्टर वाले है ना. अब 5-6 वाले जा रहे हैं. यू शुड बी रेडी टू टेक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटीज.
Attendance was too less today. Not even 100.
हाँ
Attendance was
हाँ
too
ठीक
less.
है. थोड़ा सा कम हो गया बिकॉज वो टेक्निकल हिच भी आया था.
हाँ बीच में थोड़ी देर के लिए 5 मिनट्स के लिए था अराउंड सर.
यस